I'd like to now recognize Mr. Mendell from New York, our final individual who will share a story of his son, Brian.
Congresswoman Guinta, Congresswoman Kuster, thank you both for your leadership. For all the other members of the Heroin Task Force, thank you all. For those who are here and those who will listen to this, for your dedicated work on this, and for having me here today. Jessica Nichols, Addiction Policy Forum, thank you for leadership in pulling this together. I'm very grateful to be here today at a critical time to talk about why we must tackle this issue and what Congress must do to tackle this issue. My name is Gary Mendell. I'm actually from Connecticut. My office is in New York. I have 5 children who I love dearly. Although one son, my son Brian, is no longer with us. I've had the experience that it's every parent's worst nightmare. I buried my son. After my son's death, I was haunted. What could I do to spare another family of this tragedy? I was also haunted knowing that for every major disease in this country, there was one well-funded national organization funding private research, advocating for change in public policies, and providing information, support, and hope for so many. And for those reasons, I left my business career and formed such an organization for addiction, Shatterproof. In the past 2.5 years, we have brought together almost 100,000 Americans and worked in the states and have successfully worked with legislators to pass legislation in 9 different states. And we're proud of that. But there's so much more to do. And for that reason, I'm heartened to be here today to see that there's now a federal response to this issue. President Obama, as you know, is taking a leadership role in this and has made it one of his major priorities. The CDC worked all of 2015 and recently issued its very, very important prescriber guidelines to give guidance to doctors of when to prescribe and when not to prescribe. The FDA has recently issued regulations on how to label prescription opiates, and we're hoping soon will require prescriber education. And now all of you in Congress are very close to a law that can literally save tens of thousands of lives. However, I am here to ask for more, much more, because we need you to do more. In 2014 and 2015, Ebola took the lives of 14,000 people. Congress mobilized, and $5 billion was appropriated. In contrast, in the past 10 years, almost 200,000 Americans have lost their lives to opiates. In 2016 alone, there will be more than 30,000 of our loved ones who will die. And these are not just statistics. These are sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters. And that's why we need more. So I'm here today to talk about 3 specific recommendations that I have that I hope Congress will listen to and hopefully implement. Number 1, the bills that sit in conference right now between the House and the Senate are good bills and a good start. It's important that they be sent to the President in 8 days, a week from tomorrow, before Congress breaks for Memorial Day weekend. If this were Ebola, that would be done. 8 days. Number 2, and it's been mentioned on this panel, funding. President Obama has suggested $1.1 billion in emergency funding, but to date, there has been no action on taking on this. What you've heard today requires that funding. And number 3, The Senate version of the CARA bill includes a clause, entitled incentive implementation grants. And that clause requires that any state that receives a grant for the opiate issue requires its doctors to check a patient's history before they prescribe either an opiate or a benzodiazepine, and also requires the state to share that information with all other states. That is not in the House bill or any of the House bills. That needs to be in the final bill. If that clause does not survive in the final bill, thousands of others will die unnecessarily. It would be a travesty beyond anything I can ever describe. In my son's last visit home, 4 months before he died, the very last night, we're sitting on the porch, talking about the Giants and the Mets, and the conversation turned to addiction and stigma. He turned to me and he said, "Dad, someday, people will realize I just have a disease, and I am trying my hardest." Well, the someday that Brian spoke about is way too off in the future. Because the time I've been sitting here, another 10 Americans have lost their life. Action must be taken now. Every morning I wake up, I know what I cannot change. Brian will not be coming home. I will not hug him again. But I also know what we can change. I trust Congress to work and take consideration of the 3 recommendations that I have made to save another parent's child. Thank you.